I am so excited today to welcome Paige Arnoff-Fenn. She is the founder and CEO of Mavens and Moguls, a global branding and digital marketing firm whose clients range from early stage startup to Fortune 500 companies, including, oh my goodness, what a list: Colgate, Virgin, Microsoft, the New York Times Company. And before that, she was VP of marketing at Zipcar and Inc.com. Prior to that, she held the title of Senior VP of Marketing at Launch Media, an internet startup firm that was later sold to Yahoo. Paige has also worked on as a special assistant to the chief marketing officer of global marketing at the Coca-Cola Company, and held the position of director of the 1996 commemorative coin program at the Department of Treasury. Paige is a founding board member of Women and Entrepreneurs in Science and Technology, and she is the past board chair of the Alumni Board of Stanford University. She was the appointed director for Harvard Business School on the Harvard Alumni Association Board, which governs all the schools across the university. She is also the former vice president of the Harvard Business School Global Alumni Board, and the only woman chair of the Board of Trustees of the Sports Museum at the Boston Garden. She is an advisor to several early stage private companies and nonprofit organizations, and is also a three-time past president of the Stanford Club of New England, which serves alumni in a 5-state region. She holds an undergraduate degree in economics from Stanford University and an MBA from Harvard Business School. Paige, welcome.
Thank you so much, Craig, for having me.
Oh, I'm excited. I've been looking forward to having you come. My goodness, that I don't think I would accomplish that in 3 careers. You have done so much.
Well, I don't sleep a lot and I love what I do. So I feel like there's just so much opportunity out there and there's so many great people that I love throwing myself into things that interest me.
Wow. Well, that's neat. I mean, and how did this happen? We were talking a little bit earlier in the green room. You grew up in New Orleans. You now live in Cambridge, and you obviously lived in California. How did all this start? How did this come about?
So I joke that I'm the accidental entrepreneur. I was never planning on starting a company. When I was a kid, I looked at people like Meg Whitman as role models. I wanted to be a Fortune 500 CEO. So when I was in business school, I thought fast forward a few decades, I'd be running a big multinational Fortune 500 company and traveling the world and motivating and inspiring my staff and team to accomplish great things. And I started down that path. My first job out of business school was doing marketing for Procter & Gamble, big Fortune 500 company, kind of the mecca of marketing. And as you said, I was the assistant chief marketing officer at Coca-Cola, the most recognized brand in the world. And so I was really on the corporate path. But in
can I pause you real quick?
Sure.
Because you said something that at least a good percentage of the audience doesn't know. You said you started at Procter & Gamble. They're the world's largest advertiser.
Absolutely.
So sorry, I just didn't want that to be missed. This is not just some company. You start at the world's largest advertiser and then you go to the world's largest brand.
Yeah, no, I really learned from the best of the best. And P&G invented the concept of brand management. So every category they compete in, they are the market leader. Whether you're talking Pampers diapers, Bounty paper towels, Charmin toilet paper, Pantene, Oil of Olay. I mean, every single category, they are the best of the best. So I learned from the masters. And the guy who was the chief marketing officer at Coke, when I was there, I was the number 2. He was the guy that did both New Coke and Diet Coke. One was the biggest failure of all time, and one was the biggest success of all time. So I really learned from the masters.
So I have a question. I was wondering, you look very young, so I wasn't going to ask if you were there for New Coke. And
That was before I worked there, but I was alive.
yeah, I actually write about New Coke, and I feel horrible for the people who did that, because I feel like they were really trying to do the right thing. I mean, as I understand it, they sampled 200,000 people. Their sample size was massive. From a data science standpoint, they did the right things and they failed miserably. And, I think I know why they failed, based on how the brain processes, but I feel so horrible for these people. Do you have any insight to how they process that internally?
I would say you shouldn't feel sorry for him, because my boss was originally fired, but they brought him back, and they turned this debacle into one of the best success stories of all time. Classic Coke, that original formula, people loved it more than ever when they brought it back. And they really emotionally connected with their customers in a way that they hadn't before. And, the profitability just soared. So you should embrace them and commend them. Don't feel sorry for them. They took lemons and turned it into like the best lemonade of all time.
That's an amazing insight. And again, just thinking about the people you advise and the listeners, I mean, nobody's perfect. Every business makes mistakes. And was it Henry
Having
Ford?
a huge budget doesn't necessarily save you. Like you said, these big companies have huge budgets and war chests, but that doesn't mean you're going to win every time. My clients now are predominantly scrappy small businesses. They can't afford to talk to more than a handful or a couple hundred people. They don't get to talk to hundreds of thousands of people. So they're having to make decisions with partial information. And you're not always going to make the right decision, but you have to have the confidence to be able to pivot and, take the data you have and make the best decisions you can. And when you have better data, you make better decisions.
Yeah. Well, and something you said about taking lemons and turning it into lemonade. I've got a book coming out this fall, and I forgot the exact quote by Henry Ford, but it's something along the lines is the only mistake is one that you don't learn from.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
And I didn't know, I mean, it makes sense that in that failure, in taking it away, I mean, so my grandkids just came and visited, and what's the most coveted toy? The one his brother has, so once you lose something, it comes back. And I'd never thought about that. So that helped reawaken people's love for classic Coke.
Exactly. But there I was at Coca-Cola. It was 1997, and the internet had really started to take off. And I kind of got bitten by the .com bug. And I was watching all these scrappy little companies raise millions of dollars. And it was like a shiny object I could not stop staring at. And I had a big office and a, cushy corporate job and a secretary. And all I wanted to do was like wear jeans to work and go work at one of these fun startup businesses that didn't have all the hierarchy and structure. So I quit my fancy job in Atlanta on a Friday, and I started working at an internet startup on Monday morning in the music and entertainment space. And I was kind of a pop culture junkie. And the company had raised about $40 million, and most of it was for marketing. And I was the new chief marketing officer. And I just, got to wear my jeans and flip-flops to work. Our office was 5 blocks from the beach. everyone that worked for me, at Coke, it's very buttoned up, very corporate. Men didn't leave their own office to go to the bathroom or the cafeteria without their jackets on. Everyone
Wow.
on my team at the internet startup, they had tattoos, body piercing, pink hair, shaved heads, flip-flops, cutoffs. It was not corporate at all. And we just had a ball. And like I said, $40 million is not nothing, but it wasn't even close to the budgets I had at P&G and Coke. And we were really scrappy, and we just had a ball. And we ended up going public and getting sold to Yahoo. And then my husband and I moved to the East Coast. I did another startup as the head of marketing, and we got sold to Bertelsmann, which is the largest privately held media company in the world. Then I did another startup as the head of marketing, and we went public and we were sold as well. So I had these 3 good exits, and I was just having so much fun without all the layers of management and memos and all the corporate stuff that used to just feel kind of constraining and kind of zap me of a lot of energy and creativity. With these internet startups, it was like fasten your seatbelt and learn as much as you can, as fast as you can. And like you were saying, when you do research at a big company, it can take months. At the internet startup, you go out at lunch hour, you intercept people on the street that look like your target audience, you get their feedback. And before you go home that night, you've incorporated their feedback into your website, and you read the next morning and see which clicks got the most traffic. And that was your research. It was all done in a 24-hour cycle. Internet companies can't wait 6, 8, 9 months for data results. That's ridiculous. And
Yeah.
then 9/11 happened, and I had just gotten bought out of the 3rd startup, and I ended up hanging a shingle out and becoming an independent marketing professional, setting up my business, and I've been at it for 21 years. So like I said, if you had met me in business school and told me I'd be running, a global marketing and branding company, I would have said, Craig, you're insane. I'm
Yeah.
going to be Meg Whitman. And look, I guess the joke's on me.
So your company is Mavens and Moguls. Yeah. So how'd you come upon that name?
It's a good story. Maven is a Yiddish word for expert, or my great grandmother might say know-it-all. And mogul, if you check out Merriam-Webster, someone of rank, power, or distinction in a specified area. So when I was assembling my team, I called the women the marketing mavens and the guys the marketing moguls. And as I was emailing them while we were setting up, I'd just email, hey, mavens and moguls, here's what's going on. Here's some ideas. Here's some potential work. And that was just my name. I wasn't really thinking that was the name of the company. We were building the website, kind of getting launched. And, but then when the website was done, we needed a name and a logo and a brand. So I sent out, a survey over email, and I listed about 100 names. Most of them were really serious. Integrated marketing solutions, strategic marketing advisors, these very buttoned up names. And I threw in Mavens and Moguls just as why not? And I sent the survey out to about 100 people that might be potential clients. They might refer business to us, people that are in the media that might, talk about us. And I said, we want to be memorable. We don't want to kind of blend in. We want to stand out. If we're going to do marketing and branding, we have to have a good name. Here's what we're doing. Look at the list and give me your favorite choices. And what came back really shocked me. People didn't like the boring names. Mavens and Moguls showed up on so many people's top 5. And there were only 3 people that said either, whatever you do, don't pick Mavens and Moguls.
Ah,
It's too silly. You're not going to be taken seriously. Oh, and in the blurb that I sent, the placeholder was Company X. I'm trying to find a name for Company X. So one of those 3 people said, I don't like any of your names. I think you should call yourself Company X. And I thought that was ridiculous. And then the 3rd person, unprompted, called me like 2 days after I sent the survey. And he said, is it too late to change my vote? And I said, what are you thinking? He said, I was the one that said, whatever you do, don't pick Mavens and Moguls. But it's the only name I remember now. I don't even remember what I voted on. Now I kind of like the name. It's grown on me. So that sealed the deal for me. Once I realized we want to break through the clutter, we wanted to be the not your father's Oldsmobile version of marketing companies. And we wanted to be memorable. So it stuck. I had a designer friend make a logo, bought the URL, and here we are 21 years later.
wow, that's awesome. And I think one of the things that really hurts, especially larger brands, is they get terrified of offending or doing something that's that way. There's a fellow locally, a guy named Roy Williams, who's pretty successful. And in one of he has in his first book that was a bestseller, I think the opening sentence is the cost of clarity is offense, or something along those lines. And basically, if you want to be clear, and he would go on to say, if you want to be memorable, you will offend people. If you offend no one, you've got a horrible brand.
Absolutely. I mean, I always say to people, don't be scared of people turning you down and saying no. Your goal is to get them to say no as quickly as possible, so you can go find the people who are going to say yes. You're not going to be, I don't need everybody to be my client, but for the people that are going to be a good fit for me, I want to make sure that they think of me first. So at the end of the day, the goal is, find people who value what you do, who want to pay you, a fair wage to help them. And don't worry if you're not a good fit, that's fine. Clear the decks. You don't want tire kickers to drain your energy and keep, asking questions if they're not going to pull the trigger. If you have to offend people, that's okay.
And I think you really hit something so key, especially for a lot of smaller businesses. Now if you have a factory that just turns out things by the millions, yeah, you want to sell those to as many people as you can. But if you're in anything that resembles a service business, your goal isn't to serve everybody. It's to serve the people who get you and who you get them.
You got it. So know your target audience, know what they value, know what messages resonate with them. And that's the key. You want to find them as quickly as possible and ignore and kind of clear the decks of anything that's just noise or a distraction.
We talk a lot about, in our own world, we talk about something we call a first time offer that's like a coffee date. And if you think about the purpose of a coffee date, you go on the coffee date because you hope for bigger and better things. You don't go on the coffee date because you hope it fails. But you go on the coffee date, and sometimes at the end of the date, you say, you know what, you're a wonderful person. I don't think we're wonderful together.
Right.
And that's success.
Absolutely.
So what does Mavens and Moguls do? So like kind of a high level, What do you do for folks?
So we're basically a virtual marketing department for organizations that need access to great marketing talent on an outsourced basis. So we can be an extension of your team, or we can be your marketing team, just, outside of your walls. But we can almost like private label. A lot of people bring us in on a virtual basis. So we can be like a virtual chief marketing officer or a virtual marketing director, and kind of be the voice of the customer and find the right words and pictures for our clients to tell their story so they can sell more of their products and services faster. And we really believe that every organization deserves great marketing advice, that it shouldn't just go to the biggest budgets or the biggest companies that can afford to hire the Madison Avenue agencies. Nonprofits, small businesses, they deserve great marketing advice too. And so we help organizations, regardless of size or budget. We can help them on a small scale and, prioritize. They have a small budget, they're not going to be able to do everything, but there are a lot of cost-efficient things you can do with online marketing and social media that can really help you elevate your profile and tell your story to a larger audience.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, as you were talking about your journey, what an amazing journey. You've been in multiple leadership roles. You've been in your current leadership role for 21 years and of Mavens and Moguls. What would you say if you had one leadership lesson that you could pass off to your son or daughter, and you said, this is the one lesson I want you to remember? What would be that lesson?
So I don't have any kids, but I've got nieces, nephews, and godkids, lots of mentees. There are a lot of lessons to pass along. I think probably the most important is about being authentic, sticking to your strengths. Don't try and kind of mimic somebody else. Figure out what's really good for you. Sorry about that. And if you know what your core values and core strengths are, that's really the best you're going to be able. You will own that. You own that lane better than anybody else. You need to hire around your weaknesses and focus on your strengths. That's your competitive advantage. I think where leaders go awry is they try and kind of mimic or copycat other people. And you're never going to be the best if you're imitating somebody else. I think the original, stick to your knitting and know what's really unique, special, and different about you, and then manage that to the hilt. I think those brands are the ones that own the real estate in their customer's brain. So when they have a problem that brand can help them solve, they will think of that brand first. People know when it's real, and they know when it's kind of copycat. And the copycats really don't win in the end. So I think it's about being authentic, transparent, vulnerable, but really knowing what's the best thing, what is unique, special, and different. What are you the best at? And if you stick to that, you're in good shape.
Well, that's great advice. Let me ask you this. When was a time that you felt like your leadership was really put to the test, and it was just kind of one of these shaky times and you weren't sure how it was going to work out?
There are a lot of examples of that too. In the first 6 months of my company, one of my very first clients signed a 6-figure engagement. That's a big client for a company like mine. And we were doing PR for him. and the guy was a jerk. And we were getting him great PR. My team was getting him quoted everywhere, locally, nationally. I mean, his name and photo and quotes, and he was just popping up everywhere. He was being really slow to pay, and his head was getting big, and he was just not very nice. And, when you start a company, the buck stops with you. And I talked about having a no jerks policy. I didn't want to work with or for jerks. Well, on the third month of our engagement, again, he signed a 12-month contract. The team, we were all in his office around the table. And I said, before we jump into the agenda, since we're all here in person today, maybe we could just start with you kind of thanking the team. You've had a great run on the press front. We've only been working together a couple months, and you've already gotten some outstanding press. And I just thought maybe we could start with that. And he looks me dead in the eye and says, "Thank you. Why would I thank you? I'm paying you." And I thought, what a jerk. And by the way, he hadn't paid us that month yet. So I said, funny you should say that. I'm hoping we can leave here with a check since we actually haven't been paid this month. But anyway, I was disappointed. And we had our meeting. And at the end of the meeting, I said to him, I don't think we're the right team for you. And I think this may be our last month. So when you get the check, I think we should kind of shake hands and part ways. And the guy was really taken aback. And he said, "Are you firing me as a client?" I said, "Yeah, I think I am. I think that's exactly what I'm doing." And I have to say, we walked out of there. My team and I were in the parking lot. And it was like this huge weight had been lifted because they knew I had their back, and they knew I put my money where my mouth was. I didn't just talk about no jerks. We're really not going to work for them. And they did do an outstanding job, and he wasn't even willing to thank them. And, we were over servicing him for what he was paying, and he didn't appreciate it. And within about a month or 6 weeks, we had replaced that business and income with even more, with better clients, bigger budgets. And the team was just like thriving. They were so excited, and they knew that I wasn't scared to walk away. Like, it was a risky maneuver. Like I said, I had really only started my company a few months before. He was one of my biggest clients, but I thought, like, this guy's a jerk. Everyone that knows him knows he's a jerk. And if he has other friends that own businesses and they see how great of a job we've done for them, and these people contact me thinking, that guy's such an asshole, and look at the great press she got him. If she can do that for him, imagine what they could do for me. And this guy's a jerk too, maybe not as much of a jerk, but I didn't want to build a company with a bunch of clients like that. And I just, in real time, realized we got to draw a line right here, right now, because this could get really, this could lead to a place I don't want to go. And it was a really smart move, and I've never looked back.
No, and that's so good, and especially in the marketing and advertising business, there's almost an assumption that, you take the abuse and you take it for money. And so I'm sure he was surprised, because I'm sure he had done that with a number of agencies.
I'm sure he did it with everybody that he came in contact with.
But for you to build an amazing team, you could only hope that all of your competitors allow their employees to get abused.
Right. No, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that business.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this is awesome. Literally, we could go on and talk for another hour. I was
going to say, I could talk to you forever, Craig. This is so fun.
Well, it is fun. Paige, I'm so glad you were here. So how do people contact you?
So the best thing, you can go to my website, mavensandmoguls.com. It's MAVENSANDMOGULS.com, or on LinkedIn. My last name is hyphenated, but on LinkedIn, it's all smushed together. Paige Arnoff Fenn, PAIGEARNOFFENN. And as one of my clients always says, because the name of my company has an ampersand and my last name is hyphenated, she's always like, there are too many words, I can never remember. So I always just Google Paige and Mavens, and you always pop right up. So thank goodness for search engine optimization. You can always find me on Google too.
Oh, that's excellent. And you said earlier that you have some free resources on your website. So you go to mavensandmoguls.com, and the articles tab and the speakers tab is loaded with free
Loaded
stuff.
to chock full, lots of free content that'll help small businesses. And if you have any questions, you can contact me, and I'm happy. I love talking about all things branding and marketing, so feel free to follow up.
Well, thanks again, Paige. This has been great.
Thanks, Craig. I've had a ball. Really appreciate it.